So hi all. So in this video, let us see a topic on the different types of properties of food that plays a role in the during the concentration of any foods. So mainly thermal, electrical, and the rheological properties plays a major role. So thermal properties, when we look into it, like thermal itself, from the term we can relate it to thermal means heat. So most of the processing operations like blanching, cooking, pasteurization, sterilization all involve a temperature dependent, like it undergoes some biochemical or chemical changes during the processing operation. So the main safety and the quality of the foods will depend critically on the correct temperature profiles only. So for example, in the process of canning, a main problem in finding the optimum heating regime that inactivates any microorganisms is the main the temperature that has to be, the key point that has to be considered. So the quality and the safety of any type of food will depend critically on the entire temperature history and the state of distribution of the water in the food. And the thermal different properties that plays a role in the food is the under thermal conductivity, specific heat capacity, enthalpy, and the latent heat. So thermal conductivity is nothing but it is like we can define it as a measure of its ability to conduct any type of heat. So that is how much amount of heat it has to is needed for any food operation. So that we have to calculate. So it is expressed in the unit of watt per meter Kelvin in SI system. So in any porous solids such as foods, this thermal conductivity will mainly depend on the food composition and other factors that will affect the heat flow paths throughout the operation of the food material, such as void fraction, shape, size, arrangement of that air spaces, the fluid contained in that pores, and the homogeneity of the any food particle. So in the thermal conductivity in foods having more fibrous structure such as meat, that those cannot be same in the different directions. So in that case what happens is that we can um, relate it with the respect of the direction of the heat flow path. Okay, so that thermal conductivity will increase with the increase in the moisture content in high fibrous foods. So this conductivities of the foods will vary between the that of water and that of the air. Okay, so as I told, with the different conductivities of water, we can relate the, the thermal conductivity property, how it is been relating. So next is the specific heat capacity. So we all know specific heat is nothing but how much amount of heat that is needed to increase the temperature of a unit mass of substance by a unit degree. So we can denote in the unit of joule per kg Kelvin in SI system. So it mainly depends on the nature of process of adding the heat in terms of either constant pressure process or a constant volume process. We have to increase the temperature of the particular food. So that specific heat of foodstuffs will depend very much on their composition only. So like knowing the specific heat of each component of a mixture is usually sufficient to predict the specific heat of. So already few constituents that are present in the food will emit heat during the processing. So based on that, each component that is already present in the mixture, with the help of that we can deduct the how much amount of specific heat has to be specific heat plays a role in it. Generally, like experimentally, determine specific heat is higher than the predicted value. So the reason is that due to the presence of the bound water, variation of the specific heat of the component phases with the source and the interaction of the component phases will occur. Next, third thermal property is the enthalpy and the latent heat. So enthalpy is nothing but how much amount of heat content in a system per unit mass. So it is like a one of the thermodynamic property that mainly depends only on the state of the system. So it in terms of internal energy and pressure, we can relate the enthalpy. Latent heat is nothing but how much amount of heat is released or absorbed by a substance. So during the change of state that occurs with a either change in temperature or during a phase transition, as like melting ice or boiling or any water. Next is the electrical property. So electrical property, it can be determined from the measurement of current, voltage, and the like other um, dimensions of any material. So when we consider a constant, like for example, if we have a cross sectional area A with a length L with a voltage V across any faces, and when we pass a current I flows through that particular material, then from the Ohm's law we can deduct how much amount of the um, yeah, electricity is being conducted. I mean, it has been passed through the particular food material with the equation R, that is R is equal to V by I. So like how much voltage we apply divided by how much current it is been flowing. With that we can find out the electrical conductivity from the resistance by the expression sigma is equal to L, that is length of that particular area divided by that area, cross sectional area, into the how much amount of the resistance that we have obtained. Next, factors that affect the electrical conductivity of liquid and solid foods. So liquid foods will mainly determined with the temperature, field strength, and the ingredients that are present in the food. When we look into the solid foods, mainly with the microstructure and the temperature and as well as the electric field strength, we can relate how much amount of the conduction of electricity is being passed. Application of this electrical property mainly, where we apply this is in the process of ohmic heating and the PEF, pulsed electric field processing techniques. We are applying this type of electrical property. So ohmic heating is nothing but the flow of the current through the food material to heat it by internal generation. Okay, that is like ohmic heating. PEF is nothing but we are applying high intensity electric field pulses of short duration to cause microbial inactivation through membrane rupture. So mainly the main motto of this electrical property is to kill the um microbial organisms or inactivation of the microbes. But ohmic heating is like we are just continuously passing heat, but here in PEF, like for a shorter duration we are giving high intensity pulse. So a class of process known as moderate electric field process is one of the emerging technology. Next, third one last is the rheological property. So we all know rheology means it nothing but the deformation of the materials including the flow. So the flow of any food, we relate it as the rheological property. So these are like required in product quantity and in engineering calculation and also in designing the process of any food. So understanding the flow behavior is mainly used to determine the size of the pump and the pipe and the energy requirements. So mainly with the energy and the mass balances, we can experimentally measure how what type of models can be used in designing the food process. Equipments. So classification of rheology we can categorize into deformation and flow. So deformation into elastic type of fluid, inelastic type of fluid, and again elastic as Hookean, non-Hookean, inelastic as viscoelastic and viscoplastic type 1, and flow in plastic and viscous, where plastic will be non-Bingham fluid and Bingham, viscous will be Newtonian and non-Newtonian type of fluids. So rheology of solid foods, mainly it can be divided into two main classes. So when we look into the rheology for solid foods, one is the how we can evaluate this by fundamental test or by imitative or empirical test. So fundamental test is it will measure the inherent properties with the material and do not depend on the geometry of the test sample, like conditions of loading or the apparatus. So examples of these properties are modulus of elasticity, Poisson's ratio, relaxation time, and by measuring the shear modulus we can measure the rheology of any type of solid food, whereas empirical or imitative test will be used to determine the properties such as puncture force or extrusion energy, where like their speed of the test or the mass of the sample and the geometry will be playing the main parameter role. For liquid foods, like mainly the flow under gravity, that is, and do not retain their shape. We can relate the flow properties of foods by number of factors like quality control, understanding the structure, process engineering application, and correlation with the sensory evaluation also. So correlation with sensory evaluation is one of a very unique area of rheology of foods. In particular, food rheologists have made unique contributions to the study of its relation to basic rheological parameters. So, in the place of liquid foods, we are relating it with the viscosity only. That is, viscosity, we all know it is the resistance of any fluid to flow. So, it will obviously vary with the temperature, and the difference in the effect of temperature on this type of fluid, we relate it with the molecular structure present within them. Okay, so most of the viscosity of the fluid will decrease when the temperature increases. So categories of fluid type of food is like main category is nothing but viscous fluid, plastic fluids, and the time dependent fluids. Thank you.